As I'm sure you've been able to piece together, you smart little devil you, this video's about what the Helldivers tutorial didn't cover. Now, we're gonna walk through this procedurally, and I'll try not to miss anything as I go on, because as you can see, the tutorial didn't exactly hit on these parts. They're not written down anywhere but the back of my mangled up, twisted mind. So, I apologize if I skip over something that I shouldn't have. Before I talk about loadouts, I have to tell you how you're gonna get your guns and armor to begin with, and that would be through the War Bond. The War Bond is set up kinda like a battle pass, except you actually get worthwhile armaments out of the thing, and it's more of an interesting progression system than anything else. Every time you successfully complete the mission, regardless of whether or not you extract, you will receive medals. You may also get these medals by randomly finding them while stumbling across points of interest in the field. I will show you exactly what these look like later. You will use these medals to buy what you would like out of the aforementioned War Bond menu. Upon reaching a certain threshold of medallions spent, you may proceed to move on to the next page of the War Bond. There is also the Premium War Bond to look out for. It has some interesting equipment. This includes fire-spewing shotguns, explosive peppering assault rifles, etc. If you don't spend any of the credits, super credits that is, the premium currency that you can buy or attain in-game, by the time you reach the end of the first War Bond, you will absolutely be able to buy the Premium War Bond with the excess of credits that you will then have. We may now address armor types, finally. If your sole purpose is be fashionable, can't knock it. If you look good, you look good. I will, however, inform you, if you haven't seemed to notice yet, there are 3 classes of armor. As you progress through the armor getting heavier and more effective, you'll notice your speed is naturally going down. Also, take note that each armor set has a unique set of perks attached to it, whether it be explosive damage reduction, extra stims, extra frags, etc. As of right now, there are no modifiers for capes or helmets, so mix and match with whatever you feel looks good in that regard. Now on to the flip side of armor, you have your weaponry. A lot of this is personal preference, but there are obviously very favorable combinations. As I have mentioned previously, a breaker shotgun and a railgun will have you in a position to kill anything you come across in the game. However, it takes some leveling to get to that railgun, so when coming up with your own weapon combinations, think of it like having a balanced diet. Like when you went through the school lunchroom and you saw all those posters with plates divided into different food groups as if we didn't know you couldn't just eat candy for every meal. You're gonna need something that can take care of basic swarms and something that can take care of heavily armored targets. A bit later, when I am on to match details, I'll explain enemy weak points as well so you can complement your gameplay style. We've got our loadouts, now let's move on to mission selection. Check the details of the planet you're going on to. There should be a prompt in the bottom right corner when you are flipping through missions. Modifiers I find particularly painful to tolerate include having one less stratagem slot and scrambled stratagem codes. That last one means you input a code, you'll receive a random stratagem. Half the time you try to drop a railgun at the beginning of the game and just eat a fucking airstrike to the face because you weren't paying attention. Often the safest and smartest place to start your mission is landing on extraction. I, however, like to pick the objective farthest from extraction or sub-objective farthest from the main objective, so I don't have to run back and forth across the map to extract. I shouldn't have to say this, but do yourself a favor and don't land in the red places. If you're short-staffed, automaton missions are the way to go. Once you get to a high level of Terminated mission, you do not want to go in with less than 2 people. You will simply have a lack of resources for how dense the swarms are. Also, all automatons have weak spots that are easy to access. For example, you can kill every automaton apart from tanks with 1 shot of an anti-material rifle depending on where you put it. The basic ones, hit them in the chest. Treat the bigger ones like shampoo, you're going for head and shoulders. Hit the walkers in their hip joints, and shoot the hulks in the glowing red slit on their masks. Most large automatons, including tanks, also have giant glowing coils on their backs. I don't think I have to tell you this either, but shoot those. To be candid, I airstrike the tanks. Watch out though. They compensate for these weaknesses with things like artillery, anti-air guns, orbital stratagem jammers, stuff like that. Anytime you find those, you'll be given a hell bomb to deal with the situation if you don't have anything quite adequate to do it with. None of that is to say the bug missions aren't fun, but automaton missions are definitely more structured. One last note about heavy armored enemies: your standard rifle or shotgun is gonna do jack fucking squat against them if you don't hit weak spots. Therefore, it's important that you don't lose your supply weapon. If you or a teammate happen to die, you've got 3 good options when you throw their reinforcement beacon. 1 is aggressive. You coordinate and drop their pod on the biggest enemy nearby. 2 is a little risky. You throw them back to their weapon location and they might die in the process. 3 is safe. You throw them to a clear location to recuperate. Each of these is a situation-dependent judgment call. If you do not know which call to make, pick number 3, the safety one, or else people will be very upset with you. Let me sit you down and talk about stealth real quick. I know it's tempting, but if you pick every single fight you see, your mission clock's gonna run down to 0. I know it's not what you want to hear, but mission first, murder spree later. There's obviously the natural progression of the lower you are to the ground, the quieter you are, to which some of you may say, I don't like to move slowly. But a lot of times, it's much faster to crouch past an outpost if your clock is running out than it is to fight the entire outpost. If you've got all day, by all means, gun blazing, who cares? But if you happen to find yourself getting spotted, you've got 2 options: fight or flight. If once again you're strapped for time, kill just enough to get away and save that clock. If you've got all day, like I said, mow them down. You've already been found. There's no point in being quiet now, let the bullets fly. A brief note about the importance of managing cover as well. Don't hug your cover. Keep a couple feet between it and you. The reason you do this is because explosives have knockback. That will penetrate the rock and fling you if it hits the rock that you're cheek to cheek with. Also, a lot of the time, it literally might just break the rock and you might die right then and there. So, you now know how to fight, or at least how not to die. Let's talk about mission objectives. One thing you will invariably have to do is hack terminals and input codes. I think they're all rather self-explanatory, but I'll give you the down low anyway. The most common is inputting codes in the terminal like a stratagem. You will sometimes have to boost frequencies by adjusting dials until you reach 100%. You will often align lines on a grid so they intersect on a certain sector. You may also occasionally find yourself redirecting pipelines at fuel depots. And lastly, you can put yourself in a position to be inputting launch codes for ICBM launching missions, and you get a cool explosion to boot. Another mission objective that seems to leave people standing around not knowing whether to shit or wind their watch is when you pick up those tech bricks and you can only use your sidearm. Your mission is to put it in those industrial mailbox looking receptacles. You may also occasionally have to ingest a satellite dish in order to continue operating a terminal. Just make the yellow arrow go into the triangular gray area. Simple as. It'll even make a beeping noise when you do it. With the main missions out of the way, we can speak about side objectives now. When you approach these tasks, you will be notified by a giant blue marker appearing on your map. There's usually 3 to 4 of these objectives on any given map, apart from the small island eradication missions. If there is a mortar, your goal will be pick up 5 shells around that area and load it into the artillery. This will also give you those 5 mortar rounds to use as stratagems the rest of that game. If it's a scanning tower, interact with it, and you'll have all the valuable points of interest highlighted on the map. We will talk about POIs later. Every blue moon, you will find a fallen escape shuttle. You can scan it with the stratagem, and you'll have to defend it for a little while. The rest of these, simple. Sabotage illegal broadcasting, illegal research centers, a big-ass mushroom, stalker layers, automaton artillery, anti-air scanner or jammer installments. Blow it up. I'm not gonna lie, when in doubt, make it explode is kinda your foolproof plan here. The last mission-centric objectives there are would be any sort of nest or foundry. They're gonna be represented by the big red circles on your map. Once again, the tried and true method of let's just blow it up may also be employed here. Grenades go in bug holes or the 2 vents on foundries. Any sort of explosive or orbital will also take them out. On top of that, if you're really in a pinch, anything dropped in a hell pod can also destroy these. Everything else you come across in a mission will not contribute to your gain of experience. However, you can still acquire samples, medals, super credits, and requisition slips, all of which are important, so listen up. I'll break down how to get these. If you see a golden beacon of light, that's going to lead you to a fallen rocket ship. You can get your rewards from that once you salute in front of it. If you see a freight container buried in the ground, that's another one of them. Throw a grenade in front of it, pop it open, get your reward. If you see blast doors with a button on either side, go up, you're going to need a friend. They're going to activate the button, you're going to activate the button, and then you're going to get the rewards inside. As for samples, there's kind of a lot to talk about here. Gray difficulty is only going to get you standard samples, orange is going to get you standard and rare samples, and red difficulty will give you all 3 standard, rare, and super rare samples. The higher the difficulty, the higher quantity of sample. Although you could get super rare samples in both, you would acquire more samples from Helldiver than you would from impossible difficulty. Both standard and rare samples will be found around points of interest as well as mission objectives. Super rare samples will only be found surrounding stone monoliths. You can detect both rare and super rare samples nearby as they emit a humming noise. You will receive your samples if you successfully extract, and you drop them in a vial upon death that you must retrieve should you want them. This leads me to extraction. Ideally, you remain undetected while extraction comes to pick you up, but no plan ever goes according to plan. In most missions, you'll initiate extraction and it'll take 2 minutes for you to enter the Pelican and get to safety. If your mission timer runs out, extraction will immediately begin countdown. As soon as your mission timer runs out, you are no longer able to call in stratagems. If you are reaching extraction and the timer runs out before the Pelican arrives, use all of your supply stratagems so you have them on standby should you need them. Once you're finished with your mission and back in your ship, go to this little board over here. You can purchase a myriad of upgrades through samples and requisition slips separately. I would recommend the airstrikes personally, but all that being said, I'm pretty sure I've covered every base, and despite saying that confidently, I'm sure I've missed something. Feel free to comment. I'll answer them to the best of my ability if I know the answer. And thanks for watching as always. Have a great night.